essentially, we are here to learn from the text the book called Me Hashiloach, which in English I believe is called Still Waters, right? I'm guessing, I think that's what it's called. It is translated. You can get it from Amazon. You can connect you with the guy who translated it. The writings of Rabbi Mordechai Yosef Lehner, the first Rebbe of Ishbitz, 1801 to 1854, and that's what I've tried my best to translate on that English sheet there that you have in front of you. The story of how this book got to be printed is really straightforward. Like a lot of the great rabbis of those times and these times as well, didn't write down his own stuff. Some of them, for example, Rabbi Nachman was incredibly careful about how everything was written, recorded, and published, and checked every single word. Here, he wasn't available to do it. Died in 1854. A couple of years later, one of his sons and then a grandson started putting together the collected thoughts in the briefest possible manner. And this process of collecting and writing went over many years. And what we have today is a book that is very, very terse. Doesn't look like it's dense, but it is. There's an enormous amount of meaning and reference in what he's saying. So what we started out with a couple of weeks back was a list out of this book of one thing to focus on each month of the Hebrew year, right? So that's really where we started, and it's ultimately where we're going to again. This is the month of Elul, and we're getting ready for the month of Tishrei, the first month of the Jewish year. What should we be having first and foremost in our minds every single day of the month of Tishrei? Because it's a very important month. You go to all these Jewish holidays. You got Rosh Hashanah, you got Yom Kippur. It's a time of year that people take very, very seriously, right? So what is the focus? And what we're trying to do here is reach into the programming of the cosmos. Now, this is my terminology, not anybody else's. And you're welcome to use a different set of words or a different set of terminology. But the book that we actually really start out with, and which all of this is based on, is the Sefer Yetzirah, the book of formation, or the book of creation, which is one of the earliest books of the Zohar, of the Kabbalah, the corpus of Jewish mysticism. And that gives us a list of 5 things that go together with each month. And the more I learn what the great Hasidic rabbis are talking about and saying about the Sefer Yetzirah and what it says about the month, what they add to it, how they explain it, the more I see that there is just so much in this. And this is one of the big factors that you have to remember when you're learning any book of Torah. But especially when you're reading the original layers of Hasidism, that you're not going to get it all the first time around, or even the second time around. You'll read this stuff and you'll go, wow, I get this. This means something to me. But give it a couple hours, give it a day or two, come back to it, read it again, and then you go, oh my God. And then give it another couple of days and come back to it again. And then you go, well, I got that. And I got that oh my God moment, but now I really understand it. This is stuff with an enormous amount of profundity, right? Nice word. Right? There's an enormous amount of stuff in it. And there's a whole universe of references behind the very small piece of text that says, well, here's what we should focus on in this month. Right? So before we actually get started and take a quick look back at what we did the last time, 3 cardinal principles have to be kept in mind. Number 1 is just stars up there in the sky, right? These are, again, my cardinal principles. You don't have to agree with them, but I think if you want to be Jewish, you probably should, right? If you think the constellations up there have power in and of themselves, well, we got some serious questions here about the constellations. We know are simply an alignment of stars from our point of view in our particular time. Started by the Sumerians about 3,000 years ago, time of Abraham. So Abraham, being the first astrologer, is really quite logical and intelligent. Makes a lot of sense in the background of general history of the world. I taught high school history for a while, so I actually
Kosher Astrology.
Yeah. It makes sense that Abraham would be the one that is taken out of the astrological system of his time and shown what's really all about, right? Not. So this is the three cardinal principles. Just stars up there. We think there's a lion in the sky. We think in the next month that's coming, there's the constellation Libra. You can see the scales somehow. Most of the time I look up, I've got to look very hard to see these alignments. It doesn't come naturally. But once you have the predisposition to see something up there in the sky, you see it. Astrology is not prescriptive. It's not going to tell you who to marry, what business to go into. It may give you a certain amount of warnings, but primarily this type of reading is extremely and very significantly different from the reading you would get from a regular contemporary astrologer. We read the Hasidic masters talking about this stuff, and something should jump up out of the page and talk to you. Especially if you're looking at the current month, or the month that we're building up to, or you were born in this particular month, which is our cardinal principle number 3. It's the Hebrew months only. All of this stuff goes according to the Hebrew months of the year and not the regular months at all. Okay?
So could you do number 2 again? I'm sorry.
Okay. Number 1 is the stars are just alignments of stars.
Right.
And number 2, it's not prescriptive.
Oh, okay.
You can't ask me, I was born in the month of Tishrei, which is the month we're going to be studying. Tell me what I should do for a living, what career I should go into, who I should marry, where I should invest my money. Right? Other cultures have this sort of thing. It helps you. This gives you understanding. It helps you live better. If you have a relationship with a person of another month of the year, you can say, hey, my daughter is a Leo. I know exactly how to deal with Leos. Right? If you've ever met my daughter, she's a Leo, 100%. I am a Sartan. I'm a Cancer. I fit the model and the mold absolutely perfectly. That helps me understand me, and it helps me understand my kid, and it validates why I deal with and handle my kid in this particular way. Right? You don't need to get into any of the specifics, but it helps you understand, and it gives me anyway a perspective. And if you like it, you like it. And if you don't find this interesting and informative, we'll arrange a partial refund. So, okay. No, Rabbi Postum doesn't give refunds, right? Okay, so last time we started with that which I call a reading, right? And that is opening up the books and reading from them. So we read together what the Mei HaShiloach says about this particular month, the month of Tishrei that we're looking at going into, and also insight for those born in Tishrei or relating to people born in Tishrei. There are a number of things that connect with months, and what we're looking at here in this particular piece of text is 2 of the less commonly discussed ones. So I figured we'd start off with these because they are interesting, they are obvious, and they do require a little bit of Hebrew reading. Okay? So if Hebrew is not your best subject, this should be an encouragement for you to work on it. Okay? Very, very straightforward though. It's not rocket science here. We're looking at anything that has 12 to it in the Bible, in the Talmud, in the Midrash, in Jewish law as a whole. Anything that has 12 to it must be something to do with the 12 months of the year. Right? It's a level playing field. One of the most amazing things about the Hasidic rabbis is that all of these texts are simply put a level playing field. You would say maybe if it's in the book of Genesis in Bereshit, that will be something more important than a paragraph in the prayer book. All of this stuff comes from the same source originally, and they do put all of these things together. Here we're in the Bible. Here we're straight throughout talking about biblical texts. And we're putting aside a lot of the other stuff. We're putting aside the constellation. We're putting aside the other various things, what Harav Aharon was talking about before, permutations of God's name and verses that go with that. That was a technical one and a tough one that we worked through. And for some people, that can be very, very dramatic. Personally, that particular thing is what drew me into this whole study, because it showed me a huge truth about myself, right? And I'm not just a crab. I'm a crabby person a lot of the time, but there is a certain verse in a certain book in the Bible that is associated with the month of Cancer the Crab, and that's been my difficulty all my life, up to and including this day. And understanding that, I now understand what or who I am, and maybe what my job is in this particular incarnation of my soul. Okay? So we're looking at away from all the standard stuff. We're not looking at the tribe itself. We're not looking at the constellation. We're not looking at the body parts. We're not looking at the senses or actions of the body, but we're looking at the stones of the Choshen. What are the stones of the Choshen? Page number 3 in your handout. If you're watching us on YouTube, we do have the ability to send these things to you. Drop us a note. We'll give us a call, send us an email. We'll very, very happily share all of these things with you. Okay? Page number 3 comes from the website of the Temple Institute. You should spend some time reading that. Interesting stuff. The high priest had something called a Choshen, which is one of those words that we don't really have a meaning for and a translation for. And you've seen this before. This is nothing new. There are 4 rows of 3 stones each one representing one of the tribes of Israel. Right? And according to the Temple Institute website, there are 30 different possibilities for what these 12 stones are. We are going to be looking at a situation where we have to examine 2 stones and 2 tribes. Why is that? How many tribes of Israel are there? This is not a trick question.
Depends how you count.
Depends how you count them, right? Depends how you count them. There are, in fact, 13 tribes of Israel, right? There are only 12 constellations. How does that work? One has no constellation, maybe. Again, if you look at Exodus chapter 1, Sefer Shemot, you will see a list of the 12 tribes of Israel as they go into the land of Egypt. Here we're talking about the men themselves, right? The sons of Jacob, which includes Joseph and Levi, right? You then zip ahead to Numbers chapter 1, Sefer Bamidbar, and you have the order of how they marched in the wilderness. There you have Joseph is out of the picture. And in place of him, you have his 2 sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. That's 12. No, what happened to Levi, number 13? Right? He is out of the picture altogether because he doesn't march in the same order, and that particular tribe is not included in the list of 12 tribes there. So this is an issue that keeps coming back. And rather than look at it as a problem, how on earth are we going to deal with it? There's 13 tribes, but there's 12 tribes, and there's 12 different tribes. The Hasidic rabbis of the 1900s have largely tried to reconcile it. How can this month be both the month of Joseph and the month of Benjamin? And you'll see it does pretty much work, surprisingly. the alignments of the tribes. This is a technical bit that you don't have to remember. The alignments of the tribes, either Exodus order, birth order, or Numbers Bamidbar, marching through the wilderness order. These line up according to the versions of the Sefer Yetzirah. According to the, I'm going to hold up the book and let you see it.
Oh, okay.
Sefer Yetzirah, Book of Creation, translated by the late Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan, and
Attributed to Abraham?
attributed to Abraham. So it's very, very early, and a book that was kept completely secret for a long, long time, and taught only to unique individuals. And eventually, in the 12th century or so, it does become public, and it does get written and passed around. And today you can download it from the internet in multiple versions. I would say don't download this version because I'm sure Rabbi Kaplan has some heirs who would not be entirely happy about that. This does not, in fact, have the tribes' names listed. But the order of how this works goes according to the published versions of the Book of Creation. That of the Gra of Rav Saadia Gaon and that of the Gaon of Vilna. Right? So there are different alignments of tribes. And what we get here is, for the month of Tishrei, Ephraim. We are looking mostly, but not exclusively, at the version and the arrangement and the text that is presented to us by Rabbi Elijah the Gaon of Vilna in his edition and his commentary. Right? He writes an enormous commentary on this, big fat book of commentary. And I think you probably can buy it. You can actually download it for nothing from HebrewBooks.org. Ton of small print. But the tribe that he associates is the tribe of Ephraim, the son of Joseph. Whereas the version of the Gaonim, of Rav Saadia Gaon, puts together with this tribe, with this month rather, the tribe of Benjamin. So it's Tishrei, the month, Libra, the constellation. The thing that we are dealing with is sexual intimacy. We're always going to be talking about sex here, so there's no way out of it. Either Benjamin or Ephraim. So we looked at last time the stones on the plate of the high priest that represented Benjamin and that represented Ephraim. Okay, I have this in two different versions here. We're good. I just want the one that I wrote all over, and then I'll be very happy. Yeah, here we go. Right? So, the thing that we started out with, and going back several weeks, and that we keep coming back to, is the focus of the month according to Rabbi Mordechai Yosef of Ishbitz. And the focus is eternal freedom. Get out of jail free. The thing you have to think about and focus on in this month of all of these difficulties of reviewing our life, what we've done in the last 12 months, how rotten we've been, how often we've failed, know that God is in charge and God has always been the one who has control. Your mistakes are not mistakes at all. Okay? And we took a look, that was one of the texts that we took a look at in really great detail before. Let's see what else. We looked at the stones of the plate of the high priest, Shoham, onyx, being the stone of Joseph. Onyx refers to love, and he has a Kabbalistic sort of derivation from this, but onyx is the stone of love of God, of absolute love of God, which God returns to you absolutely. God has always got your back. You're in the worst possible situation. You're doing some pretty rotten things in your life. God is still on your side, and is going to be there to pick up the pieces for you. That is the Joseph story, and he pulls that out of the Joseph story. Right? The second stone is the stone of Benjamin. I've translated it as jasper, whereas the Temple Institute is going to say opal, a stone of all colors. It's very, very difficult to say which stone is which, and it doesn't particularly matter. It's just something that's going to help us understand these things. Nonetheless, we're not looking at the stone, we're not looking at anything else other than the Hebrew word for it. And the Hebrew word for this particular stone is yashpeh, or yashpeh, and yeshpeh. The tribe of Benjamin has the ability to swallow and process all the good that is found in the nations of the world. I'm on page 2 in the English handout, right, that second, third paragraph there. And while the Joseph stone, the onyx, has the thought to it of absolute love of God, God has always got your back. Here we have in the tribe of the stone of Benjamin, which I'm saying is a jasper, means you can go and take things from the other nations of the world. Other countries, other peoples do have good things, and we have to eat them up. We have to devour them, but we only have to eat that which is good for us, and that which is good and useful for the Jewish people. Other cultures, other nations have things to teach us. And that's a risky endeavor. It's a very risky endeavor. There are many, many people in this world, especially among our people, who say we should never leave the Beit Midrash. We should never send our children to university. We should never let our kids go to the army, for example. Take something of relevance here in Israel. There are things out there that can corrupt them. Just as much, there are things out there that are good and that are wonderful and that we can bring back into our community and into our lives. So the two Benjamin and Joseph things here that we're learning through the stone may very well fit and be both sides of the same coin. That is, of course, me thinking, and you don't necessarily have to agree or disagree. So here we are in the month of Tishrei. It's coming up in a couple of weeks. What's my focus? What am I preparing for? And then what energies do I have to work with? And this is a biggie. This is a real biggie. One of the basic thoughts that comes with the whole astrology stuff is that there is a power, there's a force in this particular time of the year. From the 1st of Tishrei to the end of Tishrei, there is something out there. There's something inherent in the world as it is, in time itself, that I can let overpower me and push me around, or I can use it for good, right? And that's what we're trying to look at here. And I think it is connected to Joseph, and especially the Joseph story, and especially the Joseph story with Potiphar and Mrs. Potiphar, right? And you all remember these Bible stories. What we're going to get into is a very, very basic thought, and that is that God lives in a universe that is not entirely accessible by us ordinary human beings, right? If I want to talk to God and get God's opinion on something, not the easiest phone number to come by, right? Or email address or whatever it is. Nonetheless, we're encouraged to talk to God. That's just a basic. But the thought does come forward that, to put it in very straight, ordinary terms, that what God is doing up there in heaven can be at least seen and felt by us to some degree. What's God's priority right now? What is God working on up there? Right? I mean, we can't really apply these sort of terms and ideas to God, but there's something going on up in heaven. And if you tune your mind correctly, if you stop thinking about all the rubbish that we normally think about, there's stuff that we can access. And even more, there is stuff, there is energy that is being sent down to the world that people who are not spiritually attuned are going to take in a certain way. And people who are spiritually attuned and who have been learning this stuff can say, hey, I recognize that. And it's something that I can use. And this is what we're going to get into with Joseph and what the meaning of the names of the princes of the tribes is all about. Why does the Torah need to tell us the names of the princes of the tribes? What are you going to do with it? And what you're going to do with it is, you're going to open up the Mei HaShiloach of Rav Mordechai Yosef of Ishbitz, and it's the very beginning of the book of Numbers. And it says, it's halfway down page 2 on my translated sheets. My translations are full of mistakes, and I fully admit to having made multiple errors here in terms of spelling and in terms of other things. But you will forgive me for that because it's coming up to Rosh Hashanah, right? Okay, so Numbers chapter 1. That can be Numbers 1? Yeah, here we go. Numbers chapter 1, it's also Numbers chapter 2. We have the list of the tribes and their princes. For the children of Joseph, for Ephraim Elishama, the son of Amihud. The names always mean something, right? And if you divide up any name in Hebrew, you will see that it does have a meaning, right? Eli, to me, or my God, Shama, heard. Ami is either my people or Imi, with me. Hod, glory, honor. And then Menashe is also Gamliel ben Pedatsur. Probably we're not associating with Gamliel and with Menashe because this is the month, not of Menashe, but the month of Ephraim. And then Benjamin, the tribe of Binyamin, Avidan, the son of Gidoni. And we're going to divide this up. Avi, my father. Dan, judges. Gidoni, he's going to say, is from Gadah, Gimel Daled Ayin, to cut off. Okay? These names are significant, and they're going to tell us something about the month of the tribe that associates with them as opposed to the name of the tribe itself. Right? We're getting into nuances here, and we're really, really, really focusing in on Joseph and the Potiphar story. Right? You remember your Joseph story. Right? Joseph sold into slavery. He's bought by Potiphar, who is, what is Potiphar? He is the Sar HaTabachim. He's the executive chef, something like that, in the household of the Pharaoh. He has a Mrs. Potiphar, right, whose name is not given in the Torah and the Bible itself. She lusts after him mightily, right? You know the story. And he resists. Mrs. Potiphar, and then we know that once Joseph rises to power in Egypt, who does he marry?
Potiphar's daughter.
Exactly. Osnat, the daughter of Potiphera, Osnat bat Potiphera, right? The Kohen, the priest of the town of On. Right? So there's a name connection that is too obvious not to put them all together. So there's something happening here, and that we're going to learn from this, I think, that there is something in this world, in this particular month, that is very significant with Joseph, and is a huge lesson, and is firmly and completely and solidly based in the 2.5 lines that we get from the Sefer Yetzirah. Right? Mei HaShiloach doesn't bring up all of these things. He gives you a very easy and straightforward reading. So it's the left-hand column in the Hebrew. It's the halfway down on page 2. Are we ready? Livnei Yosef. For Ephraim, the tribe's leader is Elishama, the son of Amihud. It divides up into 2 ways. Either Eli, my God, Shama heard, or a lie, to me, he listened. All right? We're going to see it can work and swing both ways. Eli Shama means Makom sheyitgaber cheshko le'ezeh tova. When your desire is mitgaber, it becomes so strong that it overpowers you. Ki Eli Shama milishon shmua tova tadshen etzem. It's a verse in Proverbs. The light of the eyes makes the heart happy. Good news fattens the bone. Hearing good things is good for your health. So hearing good things. Brace yourselves for this, because this is very, very much a definitive piece in Ishbit's Torah. B'makom sheyitgaber alav cheshko. Whatever place you have where your desire overpowers you, yotzei kol minei tovot, all sorts of good things come from that, right? He's saying an enormous amount in very, very, very few words. You have this, or I can't say you, I have this overpowering desire to eat a cheeseburger in the non-kosher McDonald's that used to be here in Jerusalem, right? Cannot stop myself from doing it. And I do it. Here we have a line in the writings of a great Hasidic rabbi that says, whenever my desires overpower me, many good things are going to come from it. Oops. Better not let too many people read this sort of stuff. That is what is meant by Ben Amihud. The word is Imo Hod. Glory is with him. Hod, glory, is in the place. The Hebrew is a little convoluted, and the English is even more convoluted. But the point, I think, is relatively clear. This Hod is a place where a person is yearning, or you are bent down completely towards something. To do the thing, meaning you live under its power. I cannot resist the lure of a McDonald's not kosher cheeseburger. For example, I don't think I've ever had cheese on meat or dairy with meat. I'm told it's good, but never been a thing I ever wanted in my entire life. God says to you, don't put yourself into that sort of position. Don't bow down. Don't have anything in your life that has godlike power over you other than God. Don't let your food addiction, or, well, let's not say food addiction, but don't let your desire to impress other people by eating not kosher food take over your entire life and rule your life, right? But what's he going to do with this? He's going to say that this is actually a good thing if you are there. Makom Ra, God told you, when you go to this bad sort of place, don't allow yourself to be under its power. Yes. Gam Yosef Az. That was Joseph at that particular time. Right? The story of Joseph. Afki lo shama even though he did not listen to his mistress in the sense of female master who owned him as a slave, even though he didn't listen, he was completely under her spell. She was trying to seduce him for quite a while, right? Torah tells us very clearly, every day she attempted to tempt him. And he resisted, but nonetheless, he must have felt a certain reaction to the temptations, right? Midrash Tanchuma says, Eli Shama, right? Eli Shama is the name of the leader of the tribe. And reading it here as, to me he listened, says God, and not to his mistress. Right? You got this picture? Afal pike nasa bita. He married her daughter. Right? We're not going to refer to any contemporary or classical novels by anyone else, right? Nabokov. But we're not going to do this sort of stuff. This is what it means. Amihud, with him or with me is honor. Al pi ratzon Hashem yichsof letova. By the will of God, by the desire of God, he longs for the good, and his longing turns out for good. What's really going on here? It's like a very, very convoluted, and you would like him to have said this in much greater detail and greater explanation. What I think we're getting at here is there has been and always will be part of God's plan that certain people marry each other and have children together. We're going to go into the basic assumption that Osnat, that Joseph marries, is indeed the daughter of his attempted seductress, the daughter of his former owner, right? And that is something that is destined from the time of creation. And perhaps she sensed that, but does not see the full picture or the timeline of events. Marriage of Joseph into that family was predetermined. So when he came to that household, a marriage bell, an intimacy bell went off in the minds of everybody in that family. Ooh, this is my prospective husband. This is my prospective lover. But Joseph is at that point a slave and really could have been forced into bed by his owner, because that's what you do with these slaves, right? I've never owned a slave, and I don't think I ever want to. But this is the basic point. And it's the astrology point emphasized again, that there are forces at work that are really the programming underlying all of the cosmos, that we have as our birthright the ability to incline our ear, focus our minds, and get a good idea of what this is and use it to good effect. Joseph marrying Osnat, the daughter. But Mrs. Potiphar, or Potipharah, whatever her name was, or his name was, or whatever this whole story is, it's really graphic, X-rated midrash, if you want to go into that stuff, who's who and what. They got an inkling of that as well.
Maybe she even saw she would have progeny through him.
Yeah.
Which is not far off from...
Right. She saw progeny. And we've seen this in a number of other cases. Korach, for example, right? Who sees that there are descendants that are working in the temple, singing psalms and all that sort of good stuff.
How can he not be the man?
How can he not be right? And this is how I think it works, and I think this is what makes sense to me. There are signs we are being given. Torah is meant to give us a key to a door that will never fully open for us while we remain alive. When we're here in this human form, we can get, you remember radio, that you didn't hear the station very well, right? You're listening to a station that's very distant. right? Or shortwave radio. I don't think these things are terribly popular anymore. But you hear that there's a certain tune being played, and it's a radio station from the other side of the country.
Jordan, let's say.
Yeah. I don't watch TV, so I don't listen to the radio, so I'm a very holy and pure person. I only download TV shows. So but the point is you hear it, and you hear there's a tune, and you feel you want to dance to that tune. How are you going to do it? Well, just a minute. You don't get every single note. You're not hearing it all. You're not hearing the entire melody, the entire piece of music. You don't know what it's called. You don't know who wrote it. You don't know what it's really all about. So this is what the Sefer Yetzirah is talking about, I think. When it says at the very, and this is the line we started out with, that we're dealing with Tashmish, Ot Lamed, with the letter Lamed, and sexual intimacy. That this is a month that I don't want to say intimacy is in the air, but it's a month of connection. It's a month of focusing on where our closest and most intimate relationships are with God and with other human beings. And that maybe brings us into the verse that we were learning last week or the week before. Because what's the Torah verse that associates with this particular month? And I can pull out the handout from back then. It's a verse in Genesis about Sarah being taken from Abraham into the household of Pharaoh. Right? She is taken to Pharaoh, and it's that particular verse. Against her will, nothing happens. She gets returned, and they move on. It's about relationships. It's about connections. And there are a number of different ways you can take this and you can use this whole connection thing. The tribe of Manasseh, through the name of the leader of that tribe, Elishama, meaning Eli Shama, he listened only to me, Joseph in the household at the moment of temptation. Amihud, there is only good, there is only glory, there is only good things coming out of that particular situation, even though it was less than perfect. It was less than perfect, and of course Joseph shouldn't have been there, right? No normal, intelligent person would continue to put themselves in a situation where they're being constantly tempted and seduced, right? Unless you really want it, right? Even a bad thought comes from a good place. A bad deed comes from a good place. The fact that it appears to be wrong or bad or inappropriate or harmful or a failing, that's something for now, for here, or for the individual. In the right time, in the right place, and the right person, then it's going to work out fine. Intimacy of Joseph and his wife after they got married, and we make the assumption, of course, that she converted to Judaism too, right? Off you go, as they say, Bob's your uncle, right? Perfect. That's what was meant to be. That's what was meant to happen. Okay. Skip over Manasseh, because it does make a certain amount of sense, but not a huge amount. The other tribe is, of course, Benjamin. And the leader of his tribe is Avidan, the son of Gidoni. And if you just look back to the previous piece from the Me'ah Shilach, which is the top of the page, you'll see how the stone things, the stones of the Choshen things, correspond very much to the names of the leaders of the tribes. Rav Mordechai Yosef is focusing on one of the names and not the other. Benjamin stood on the border. His position was not in the center, but on the side. Mikabetz kol minei tovot mibein ha'umot. His job was to gather things from all the surrounding nations and bring them into Israel. Al ze ne'emar alav ben Gidoni. Thus, he has to be the son of Gidoni. What does that mean? He recognized that which was good and that which was not good to bring into the Jewish world, umegadea ota, and cut off that which was not appropriate for him to bring into his life. Okay, so we've got a whole pile of different things here that do indeed seem to be saying roughly the same sort of notion. This is an incredibly important month coming up, right? Whether we think about it or not, whether we're very spiritually and Kabbalistically inclined or not, the month of Tishrei is huge. It's absolutely enormous. And we have this issue of sexual intimacy being a big thing. If you go back to the original class that we did where there are 12 focus points, one for each month of the year, 3, or I think 4 of them are to do with the appetites and the lusts that people have. And all of these appetites and lusts overlap and inform and pull on each other. But we get from the stone of Joseph that there needs to be an absolute love. And once you have this incredible, clear, absolute love for God, he returns it. It's reciprocal. God's always got your back. When we look at the tribe of Benjamin and its stone, it's about devouring the good things of the nations of the world. Here we're looking at the blessing of Jacob, right? So for homework, go and read, you didn't expect to get homework, right? I'm not going to check if you read it or not, but read the last chapter of Genesis 49, the blessing of Jacob to his sons, because each one of them is significant and it fits in with all of this. And then go to the end of Deuteronomy, to the end of Devarim, and read the blessing of Moses to each of the tribes of Israel. And again, that's going to fit here. You're going to see that there's a pattern and there's a connection with all of them. And when we're looking at the month of Joseph and the month of Benjamin, we've got 2 sets of verses from Jacob's blessing and from Moses' blessing that you can add into this whole mix of things. Right? Elishama, from the name of this particular tribe's prince, the leader of the tribes. Life puts you into difficult situations. But everywhere you go, where you see temptation, where you see the pull of the negative side of intimacy, which is the Joseph story, which is the Sefer Yetzirah, word of the month, you can say, listen to God. You want God to look at his book up there and say, in that particular difficult situation, he listened to me. Eli Shama. Or Eli Shama, rather. And not to everyone else around him. And if that happens, God's got your back and will get you out of that difficulty. If we look at Benjamin, it's about just that. It's about leaving behind the safety and security of your life. You can spend all your life in a Beis Medrash. You can spend all your life in a library, right? Assuming you have someone to support you. You can spend all your time just studying. You can spend all your time with pious and observant and pure people. But life isn't like that. It's out there. There's a world. And your obligation is to decide what to bring in and what to leave out. There's stuff out there that's negative. There's stuff out there that we shouldn't touch. But there's stuff out there that we can indeed use and put to use and make our lives better with it. So all of these things do tend to overlap. And they do tend to come towards a central focus. That you do have the ability to get over mistakes. And you're being in a place where things are going to be difficult for you, and you're going to have a temptation, and maybe you're going to choose the wrong thing, Well, that really is ultimately for the good, because you're not a failure, and God sets you up to always succeed. It may not feel like that all the time, but that's an enormously powerful lesson. And for the month of Tishrei, if we're starting a new year, that's maybe the biggest lesson that there is. That was the joke we were saying at the very beginning, that we always say, this is the most important lesson that there always is. Maybe this really is, that you're being set up for success, that God really does have your back, and that when you encounter things that look to be 100% not kosher, and that I should run away from them, well, take a little bit of a look. Maybe there is a piece of this thing out there, whatever it is. The internet is good. There's plenty of good stuff on the internet. Plenty of rotten stuff on the internet, right? Just to take a very simple example. Maybe this individual that I find myself working with is, I don't know, a complete agnostic. Someone who hates the entire notion of religion. Well, you know something? Talking to him can help me come up with a more clarified vision of what my beliefs are. There's always something good. You're not a failure. You are being set up for success by God in this new year. And that sort of brings us to the end of what we have to say about Tishrei, about the first month of the year. There are many other aspects and many other ways of looking at what the month is about. And we'll go back to the Sefer Yetzirah, we'll go back to the letter, because there's a letter for every month, there's a thing for every month, there's a body part, there's a constellation which can mean something, and there is also the name of the month which we can dissect and get some meaning out of, and also the standard stuff of what the tribe is. Right? Because the tribe in and of itself is a piece that we haven't looked at, and that's why I'm pushing you to go home and read from Genesis 49, the very end of Genesis and the very end of Devarim as well, because the tribes themselves are of value. And the lineup of which tribe goes which month, that you can get from the handouts I did before, or just Google these, which tribe goes with which month. Okay, reasonably clear?
Yeah, that was interesting.
Good month. Every month's a good month. As long as you agree that every month is a good month, we're in good shape.